We all know them, the yellers, the screamers, the yeah butters, the silent types, the take it or leave it bullies. For most of us, these are our nightmare negotiation counterparts. But there is something you can do, short of just walking away or playing their game, to make it better. Stick around as I share some practical and tested tips for taming the difficult negotiator in your life. And if you stay to the end, I'm going to share with you a recent true story of my taming a truly difficult negotiator at the Massachusetts Division of Motor Vehicles. Okay, so let's get started. First, when they use the difficult negotiation behaviors, diagnose, don't react. For most of us, when we're in a negotiation and the other side is using a hard bargaining behavior, maybe they're playing good cop, bad cop, or maybe they're looking away, or they're staring at us, or they're raising their voice. It's a moment in that negotiation when we are feeling pushed. And many of us, right, when we feel pushed, we push back. So we're getting into an act-react cycle. Instead, what we want to do is become diagnostic, meaning, why is this person doing this? And a tool that I want to introduce that could be incredibly helpful is something called the 3 positions. These positions are as follows. First, the first position, what is going on for me? Am I feeling emotional? Am I feeling panicky? Am I getting, let's say, angry or fearful? That's the first position. But at the same time, I need to move into the second position. What is animating them? What is motivating them in this moment? Really great negotiators can move from the first position to the second position. But then you have to move to the third position. So that is, if I were watching this interaction from the balcony, at a theater, on a YouTube station, how would I describe it in more neutral terms, like a mediator? If in that moment, when they are using the hard bargaining moves, you can move and navigate the first, second, and third position, you're going to be much better positioned to actually respond behaviorally in a more effective way. Often what happens to many of us is we get stuck in either the first position or the second position. So I know there are many times when I'm in a dispute, right, and I'm raising my voice, I am maybe becoming difficult myself, right? I'm stuck in the first position. I don't care about them anymore. I don't even care what it looks like, all right? It looks terrible. I'd be embarrassed if people knew I was a negotiation instructor. But others of us, we get locked into the second position. Maybe you work in a customer service industry. Maybe you're like the caretaker in your family. And so suddenly you're like, oh my gosh, they're upset, right? You're in the second position. And you make a bunch of concessions to them just to get out of the situation. And later you're like, I can't believe I just told my boss I would work for the next 10 consecutive weekends, right? So you've gotten stuck in the second position. So if you can navigate all 3 positions, then the second piece of advice is to listen actively and to reframe. What do I mean by that? Well, it means that as the other side is yelling at you or screaming at you or folding their arms or being disrespectful by looking at their phone, instead of fighting back or getting insecure, ask them some questions and try to reframe a positional hardline statement into a conversation about interests or into a conversation about possible options. So if somebody is saying something like, I want $75,000, take it or leave it, a reframe might look like, okay, so it sounds like compensation is really important to you. What other things matter to you? So what I reframed is the positional $75,000 into an interest about compensation and then ask them to share more interest. Almost always they'll have to say something. They'll be like, well, I want a good office, or well, I want a great title, or well, I want to have, Fridays off. They might not become super friendly, But what happens is you learn other things that are not just 75,000, take it or leave it, and that helps us move the conversation forward. Now, let's say that has not worked. That's when you really want to move to this next point, which is what we call naming the game. So naming the game is a little more risky, but what it entails is saying, I'm no longer negotiating, let's say, the terms of compensation or the terms of the house sale. I'm now going to negotiate how it is we're negotiating. So it's going meta, M-E-T-A, on the negotiation. So what I might say there is, I feel like you've been naming a number and then I've been trying to tell you how that number doesn't work and we're not making any progress.
Well played, Jack.
In order to move forward, I would like to propose that we do this in a different way. Now they might say, no, this is how I do it. But you need to then say, so I get that this is working for you, but since we're both in the negotiation, we have to find a way that works for both of us. Many times, if you do this, they will actually find a different way of negotiating with you. If that doesn't work, though, I want to go to this fourth point, which is really standing your ground. That's not being stubborn. It's not digging in your heels and crossing your arms, but it is being aware of what your BATNA is. Let me remind you what BATNA is, what your away from the table alternative is. And if your away from the table alternative is better than what they're offering you, it's calmly and politely saying, we've tried really hard, this isn't working, and leaving. And if your BATNA, if your best alternative isn't very good, so in fact that difficult negotiator is still offering you something better than what you would get away from the table, standing your ground will be saying, I've remained frustrated and dissatisfied with the way we've interacted. And for the time being, I'm prepared to agree to your terms, but I want to continue the conversation about how we can find a way to work in a way that really works for both of us, right? So I'm only really caving here because I have no choice, but I want to at least signal that there's more to negotiate over time. So I want to end by sharing a story of just how powerful these tactics, these moves can be. Just a few weeks ago, I had to renew my driver's license and get a new title for my car at the DMV, the Division of Motor Vehicles. I suspect if you've been in a DMV before, you know that you can often see difficult negotiation tactics there. And so I'm standing online and there's a bunch of people in front of me. And let me just say, the person behind the counter was your nightmare negotiator. I mean, she was just eating people alive. And I felt so sorry for these people. And so I knew I was going to have to just put on my absolute negotiation best practice to succeed here. And so I get to the front and I sit down and she is pretty brutal. But I kept on trying to first use those three positions and second, really listen to her. Within about 3 minutes, the entire conversation shifted. What I learned from this woman is that her day job was at the DMV, and her night job was as a night nurse in an ICU unit in the city hospital where things were seriously understaffed. And in fact, she had been up the entire night, literally dealing with people coming in with gunshot wounds. As we are talking, I continue to ask her questions and listen, and she expedites my title, gives me my registration immediately, gives me my driver's license immediately. At the end, she's still talking. The people behind me are like, we kind of like to get our driver's license too, right? And I had to draw the conversation to a close just to get out of there. And for me, it was just this powerful reminder of how really moving into that second position to understand their perspective, really listening, can turn somebody who seems like they're difficult into somebody who is your ally. And I came away actually with a huge empathy for her. Her situation is really hard. And nobody goes to the DMV because they're in a good mood. Everybody's already anxious and just wants their driver's license. So she's not getting treated that well probably most of the time she's there. I appreciate it's a one-off story, but what I want to say is if you can really follow this advice, which by the way, is hard for me too. I happen to do it in this moment, but if you can do it, it can really make a difference for you in your negotiations. So remember, diagnose, don't react. Listen actively and reframe. If it's not working, name the game and always stand your ground. If you want to continue to hone your skills in negotiation, watch this next video, which is what is the most important negotiation skill? And please do me a favor and subscribe to this channel, hit the like button, and ring the bell. I'm Bob Bordone, and thanks for negotiating. Okay, you want to know the secret negotiation skill? Keep watching.